So I'd like to introduce our guest of honor today. You guys know him. His name is Ty from Lords of the Trident. He wears many hats, figuratively and literally, juggling the band Lords of the Trident, putting on the incredible Mad with Power Fest, and much, much more. Please join me in welcoming Sir Fang von Rathenstein. What is going on, brother?
Hello, Canadian citizens. Hello. Hello, I am also one of you, as you see by my bedazzled hat.
I saw you shining it up during the intro there. I was like, oh, here we go. Here we go. Welcome. Thanks for being my very first guest, Ty. I appreciate you being here, man.
Absolutely honored to be your very first guest. This is amazing. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Hello, chat. Woo!
All right.
You must have an incredible project management or a time management system. I'm curious, how do you balance everything?
Yeah, it's I never sleep, and I have a million sticky notes just everywhere. So that's my system, is that whenever I think of anything, I will make a sticky note and I'll place it on my monitor right in front of me so that it just taunts me. I think I've associated the dopamine rush of like tearing off a sticky note and crumpling it and throwing it into the basket, with that motion. So I just, I need to finish all my stuff so I can get my sticky notes off of my monitor and actually have time to do stuff. But yeah, no, I just have always had trouble like staying still and not doing anything ever since a little kid. I actually I went to a Catholic like grade school and middle school, and they would make us go to church like Roman Catholic mass like an hour and a half, like a couple times a week, every week, and I would just sit there and just be like, and I think that's kind of where my brain never shutting off came from, because I'd have to do something, because I'd be so bored just sitting there, and I just like have to do something. So I'd just start thinking of things in my brain of like stuff I could do, stuff I could think about. So I blame all the years of church for that, I suppose.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was something that you were wired with from an early age. Like you were just that kid, like always on the go. Like, were you like super energetic?
No, not really, actually. I mean, I was just more really interested in all sorts of different things. I think most kids are, you have those phases where you have the magic phase, and then you have the learning about, physics phase, and then you have this and that. But I got into computers and like video games in general from a really young age, and that just always captivated my attention. And once I got my first computer, I think I was actually, I'm pretty sure I was the only fourth grader who brought an 800-page how to program BASIC book to his fourth grade class, and then like
fourth
during
grade
reading time,
wow,
I'd just be like, how to program in BASIC and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was always doing stuff like that.
And what year were you born? Like, were you learning how like computers in elementary school?
I was born in 1984, Grant. I'm a little older than I look.
Who's laughing now? Shut up.
Because I remember in elementary school, like Windows 95 was just getting introduced. You must have been in high school when that happened, hey? Or
let me think. It was, yeah. I think the first computer that I got was the first actual computer that my family bought was in 1996, and a couple years before that, my grandma, who worked for the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I now work, she picked me up in like an old, destined for the recycling heap computer. It was a Tandy 1000. And I mean, this thing was old, but it came with like the big floppy disks, like the 5 1/4 floppy disks. But it was all I had. So I was like, I learned everything I could about it. I learned how to program. I did all that sort of stuff. I was just really enthralled with it. When I was in grade school, especially in middle school, actually, they started having us do like computer classes, and it was mostly like Apple IIe's and how to type. The school that I went to was really didn't have a lot of money. It was like a private Catholic school, so it was pretty, it didn't have any sort of like public funding or anything like that. And the best computers that they had were like new. They had 4 new Mac computers that were running like Mac OS 8 or something. And I have a funny story about how I got out of religion class. Because like even back then I was like the computer kid,
Yep.
and they didn't really have the person they had teaching our quote unquote computer classes was the librarian who didn't know anything about it. So I don't know if you ever have used one of these old Macs that has simple text, but you can the whole cool thing about it was like you could type something in and then you could have it like speak in all sorts of different voices what you typed in. So of course like kids in 5th and 6th and 7th grade would type in things like, fart, burp, that kind of thing, and like have it say the stuff to it.
Text to speech. So, and we haven't really evolved too far from that because we still do that all the time here over on Twitch.
Oh, exactly. But so I had a really I didn't like religion class. I found it really, really boring, the way they were teaching it. So I devised a way to get out of it. And I made a 92-page text file that just said na 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 Batman over and over and over for 92 pages. And I wrote a really simple script that every other day I'd put like a random variable in there every day or every other day. Right when my religion class was just starting, I would have it randomly open and start speaking it out loud on all 4 of those computers at once.
They probably thought something was possessing them.
Yeah, so it's like the computer opens up and it's like na 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 Batman, na 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 Batman, na 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 na. And so nobody knew how to stop it, so they'd go run and find me, and I'd walk in and be like, that darn virus is back again. I guess I'm just gonna have to spend 45 minutes or so fixing it. Oh, here we go.
Damn, gonna miss another religion class. Shucks.
Oh gosh. Shucks.
So I guess your parents were very religious. Is that why they put you into that, or?
They like semi. I think they put me into that school because it was actually like a pretty good school in terms of like education,
right?
Comparatively to the public schools at the time. Whether or not that was true, I don't know if I have any data to back that up, but that's what they thought. So they had us go there, and I stayed in like a private school until high school, when I went to the public schools and had a great time. So didn't have a good time in private Catholic school. Had a wonderful time in high school.
Yeah, right. So growing up with your parents, were you exposed to music early on, or is that something that you came into later on in life?
Yeah, no, my family, especially on my mom's side, is incredibly musical. My mom doesn't like to talk about this, but she has 2 gold records. And the reason she doesn't like to talk about it is it was from her time with a 90-piece all accordion orchestra, and they toured Europe.
What?
And yeah, so they had 90 accordions in a room, set up as an orchestra, and they all would play the different orchestral parts on these, other than percussion, on these accordions. They were called the Duluth Accordionaires.
That is amazing. 90-person band. Imagine the logistics of touring with that.
It was absolutely, from what I understand, it was absolutely wild. So they so she's into like extreme sports and stuff like that. So she, at the time, talking about accordions and your accordion band like in the 90s was not cool. Like nowadays it's totally cool. But back then, not so cool. So I didn't know too much about the Duluth Accordionaires, but my grandpa on my mom's side and my grandma were both super, super, super musical. They had a band together called the Billy G Combo, and they'd play polka, and they'd play to packed houses. And actually, like, how I got into music was I would see my grandpa's posters down in his basement, and I'd hear him talk about, his time with the band. And I was like, that's so cool. I want to, man, I'd love to do that. That'd be so cool. So, as soon as I could, and I'd been taking piano lessons since I was 8 and vocal lessons since I was 10. And so as soon as I could, I put together a band like in high school when I was 14. And I started off playing the keys. And then our guitarist quit. And so rather than finding another guitarist, I just was like, I can teach myself guitar, whatever. And I did. And I'm not very good at it.
That seems to be a pretty common theme with you. It's like, I don't know it. I'm just going to teach myself it. What do you think the biggest lesson you learned from your mom was in life?
I think the biggest lesson that I learned, the biggest thing that I took from my mom was her, like her outgoing personality. All of my extrovertedness,
right,
definitely comes from my mom. If you ever meet her, she'll be the first person to just jump up and like give you a hug and like start talking. She's a loud talker. I got that from her, and it was, yeah. So I think just that exuberance and the unabashedness, just not being afraid of any sort of conversation or meeting people for the first time. I definitely learned that from her. Yeah.
Right on. And what about your dad? Was he really into music or?
No, my dad was not musical at all, but he was a tinkerer. And specifically, he was very like mechanically inclined. He would go, and whenever we needed a new car, whenever our car was getting like too old and we needed something new, he'd buy a car that was absolutely totaled. I remember one time a minivan that he bought was in a square because it got rear-ended and front-ended, and it was like literally a square. So this wrecker backs into our driveway and just drops a square into our driveway, and then like 3 months later, it's a full car and it's like completely working.
Wow.
So, he was wild. So the thing that I got from him was the whole sort of DIY ethos. I was never good at mechanical stuff. I was never interested in cars. I was never interested in motors. I was very indoorsy. I wasn't interested in going out hunting. I didn't want to. I was, fishing is like, it's okay, I guess. But I was not interested in nearly any of the things that he was interested in. So he would be like hanging out in the garage, fixing up his stuff, and I'd be hanging out inside on my computers, like trying to fix up my computers.
Right.
And we had such a similar thing going, and I don't think either of us really knew that until years later, where it's like, oh, I'm doing the exact same thing you are, but just in a different sort of realm.
Yeah, my hands aren't getting all blistered and dirty.
Yeah. So, so he I mean, basically anything that you can think of, he would try to fix up or, build or install himself. So I think a lot of that DIY kind of ethos came from him for sure.
Right. That's really cool. Did you, when you were growing up, you're tinkering with things, you've got your mom, this internationally touring
she never
star
talked about.
sensation.
She never talked about.
She never talked about it, really?
Never. Not once.
So when you were a kid, she would leave for months and you wouldn't know where she was or what?
Oh, I mean, like, no, but she did this in early college, like late high school, early college. So by the time she had me, like her touring days were done.
Right. So when did you find out about this?
I think I'll tell you when I found out about it. So her best friend from the Duluth Accordionaires was my piano and vocal teacher. And even she didn't bring it up for like a couple years. It was like 2 years into piano lessons. And I was like, hey, Dana, what are those gold records on the wall? And she's like, oh, those aren't just mine. Those are your mom's too. Like, this is from when we were in the Duluth Accordionaires together. I'm like, what?
How old were you at this point?
I was probably like 11.
Oh,
maybe.
wow. This like
Yeah.
long lost, not a dark secret. It's like a light secret.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So, my idea of like music was really, or of, performing music and of being a musician was really like heavily influenced by my grandparents and
Right.
not really by my parents at all. So yeah.
Crazy. So when you were taking vocal lessons at 11, what kind of music were you getting introduced to by your grandparents? They were probably not giving you Iron Maiden records and stuff, right?
No, I actually didn't get into metal until my college years, and specifically the college years when I lived with Aki, who's the one of the lead guitarists of the band, in the dorms. Up until then, I was learning classical, I was learning musicals, I was learning a little bit of opera here and there, but it was mostly classical. And I think it was around, I was doing this from like 8 years old until maybe around 14. And I just kind of, as I got older and as I was like, listening to the radio more and listening to, friends' music more, I think I just kind of like got bored with classical music because I wanted to play more, more recent music. And I was really heavily into like, the heavier side of like grunge. So like, the heavier side of Pearl Jam, the heavier side of like Soundgarden, and stuff like that. So my first band in high school, which was called Housebroken.
We could probably have a whole segment on old band names that should not have existed.
Oh my God.
Housebroken, though. Let's not gloss over that too quick.
Yeah. We started off as Stone Angel, and then the guys
That's pretty
were worried.
Cool.
I thought so.
Yeah, I think that's
really cool.
That's not taken? Like, how is that not taken?
I don't know. And the guys were worried that people would deface our posters by adding a D at Stoned Angel.
Yeah.
And they're like,
naturally,
I don't know,
that's the move to make.
I'm not really feeling it. Why don't we call ourselves Housebroken instead?
Oh, for shame.
Yeah. But we were playing like, Pearl Jam, Red Hot Chili Peppers, just the kind of alternative rock kind of stuff. And that's what I played pretty much through the entirety of high school and college. I had a band in college called Paper Tiger, and we played the kind of that sort of a little bit on the heavier side, grungy alternative rock, kind of some little bit of funk here and there. And it wasn't until
nice. Was that with Aki or?
No. I met Aki in Japanese class, and I saw him like the first week I was at college. He was down in the music room in our dorms, like practicing, and he's like, and I'd never seen anyone do that before. And I was just sitting there like, oh my God, how
Santa
do
Maria.
you do that? Yeah, it was crazy. But we didn't do anything together musically until about junior year. And that's when I moved. He and I moved into the dorms together. And we would basically, like, our computers were back to back, and he'd be like, oh, you mind if I play some music while I study? No, it's so cool. And he'd start playing, Maiden and Priest and Dio, and I would be like, huh, what? Oh, and I'd like turn around and be like, Aki, what's this one? He's like, oh, this is Iron Maiden. I'm like, oh, this is Iron Maiden. Oh, this is pretty good.
Yeah,
this is pretty good, And the same thing with Dio and Priest, and so like through osmosis, he like turned me into a metalhead, basically.
Well, let's all thank Aki for turning you to the dark side.
Yeah, exactly.
Because otherwise, Lords of the Trident may not have existed, and which maybe segues nice into our next segment, which is the birth of Lords of the Trident. How did Lords of the Trident spawn out of your discovery of heavy metal?
Yeah, it's exactly the next thing in the story is we met a guy who we'll refer to as Brian 1 because he was the first Brian in the band, and he was the guy from
not to be confused with the Baron.
Yeah, with Brian too. But we met this guy Brian 1, and he was from Duluth, which is like 2 miles away from my hometown. And so we would carpool back and forth when we go home for like Christmas and stuff. And this guy was even better than Aki, and still is probably, other than Brian too, is probably one of the best players I've ever seen like live. He can hold his own against just about anybody. He's wild. And so Aki and him would just get together and jam in the dorm rooms. And one night I'm just sitting on my computer, like playing Counter-Strike or doing something, I don't know. And Aki and Brian are with their little practice amps jamming. And he taps me on his shoulder and he's like, "Hey, Ty, we came up with this song idea. Is there any way you could record this on your computer?" And I was like, I don't know, maybe. And so we were up until 3 a.m, like hooking up things and trying different microphones and like to see what would work. And we recorded this, we figured it out. We recorded this little song demo idea. And I think it was around like 1 a.m. They were like, "Oh, this song, it's cool, but it needs vocals. Hey Ty, you're a singer. Do like a Manowar thing. Just sing over this." And they put like headphones on.
Sing
me.
about
like, what
war and Vikings and
yeah. They were like, I was like, "What do I sing?" And they're like, "Yeah, just make it up. Just whatever. Just think Manowar." And I'm like, okay, cool. And they just hit record. And I just started singing whatever came into my brain at 1 a.m. And those lyrics are still that was the song, The Virgin Vault, off of our first record. And those lyrics are still the same lyrics to this day that I just came up with at 1 a.m.
What song was that?
So
Sorry.
It's called The Virgin Vault. It was off of our first record.
There we go.
Real
Really
old. But yeah, so we had so much fun doing that we like a couple weeks later we did it again. A couple weeks later we did it again, and then we had sort of like some demos going. And I had always told Brian and Aki, I'm like, hey, we should do like a live band with this, and like all do like fire and costumes and like swords and everything. And they were like, yeah. They're kind of like, I don't know. And then when my high school band my college band Paper Tiger was breaking up because we were all like graduating and stuff, that summer I convinced Aki and Brian to like put the band together as a live thing, just for like a few shows, just for fun. And so we did.
When doing that, did you have it in mind that this isn't only just going to be 2 shows? Like, I'm just going to get them hooked, and then they won't be able to stop.
Honestly, I honestly didn't know what to think about it, and I didn't even have any sort of expectations in my brain about it. But our fourth show, it was our third or our fourth show, we had like a CD release party where we released the recordings that we had made, as a CD. And there was this brand new venue in town called The Frequency. It was about 120 capacity. And I still don't know how this happened, but we like sold it out. And we just been posting like our songs on Facebook, and people have been following us. And I mean, this is back when Facebook was, you had to be in college to be on Facebook. It wasn't like wide open like it is today.
Right.
And yeah, like we had 100 people in that place, and people were like crowd surfing, and people were singing along.
Was this like your first show that you've played?
This was the third or fourth show as Lords of the Trident that we
Right.
played. But none of my other bands had ever gotten anywhere near that reaction, ever. And so like we finished up the set, and we in the CD release party, and we're down in the green room. We're all like looking at each other. We're going like, so I guess we keep doing this then, I suppose.
Question mark.
And and then nearly 15 years later, here we are. So
did you guys have the costumes back then, or?
we did, but they were a much lower quality,
Right.
slapped together stuff.
How many different versions of those costumes have you guys had over the years? Like yourself, like just for Fang, what do you say?
Yeah, for Fang, there's been 3 iterations of the Fang costume. There was Fang version 1, and then there were probably like multiple pants as well. Like, I don't know if you
Multiple,
wanna
yeah,
talk
I
about
would
that.
hope so. Over 15 years, if you're still rocking the same pants.
Um, but yeah, no, the we had Fang version 1, Fang version 2 with the actual like leather uh breastplate and all that sort of stuff. And then the version that I'm currently rocking is one that I made myself a couple of years ago. They had a Black Friday sale where you could buy a half a cow for like $70. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I'll teach myself how to do leatherworking because I got this half a cow. And then I made
For
a
70
set of armor.
bucks?
Yeah, for $70.
What
I
a
mean, like,
deal.
come on. Yeah.
And then, so obviously, Brian 1 didn't last forever.
No. I actually told this story on a last stream, but because I was going through the band memory box. But so Brian 2 was signed to Century Media in his band Luna Mortis.
Right.
And we opened for them on a Monday night when they just got back off of a big tour. I think it was the Ed Guy tour. They just got back off the Ed Guy tour, and they were all like 100% sick with the flu. And there was maybe like 50 people in the venue. It was like for a big venue, it was a pretty low turnout. And somebody, it wasn't Brian 2, but somebody said to Brian 1, they said, you guys are pretty good. You don't need all those costumes and gimmicks and whatever. And Brian 1 was very like not digging the costumes and the names and stuff like that. And so like he grabbed his stuff and he left and he quit.
What?
So, yep.
Jesus. Well, sounds like he
Yep.
was ready to go anyways. He was
I-
just looking
yeah,
for
probably.
an excuse.
Yeah. But yeah, really, really weird coincidence, right? So Brian 2 is now in Lords of the Trident, and their singer for Luna Mortis is Mary Zimmer, the
Right.
voice hacks.
Yep.
So and Helion Prime and all that sort of stuff. So it's like real small world. It's crazy. But yeah, really, really weird coincidence, right? So Brian 2 is now in Lords of the Trident, and their singer for Luna Mortis is Mary Zimmer, the
Right.
voice hacks.
Yep.
So and Helion Prime and all that sort of stuff. So it's like real small world. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And Lords of the Trident, for those of you guys who don't know, just released a new album, The Offering, which is incredible. You can go find it on all the streaming services. You can go find it. What's the best way for everybody to support you guys with that album, with everything you got going on?
Best way, if you guys really like what we're doing and you want to hear the album, actually, if you want to hear the last 4 albums, if you jump on our patreon.com/Lords of the Trident, you can get The Offering and our last 3 albums that we've released for $5. So if you join at the $5 level, you can get all of that. We also have like countless singles and bootlegs and all that sort of stuff available for everybody pledging there. If Patreon's not your thing, we got a Bandcamp. We're on iTunes and Apple Music and Spotify and the whole shebang. But yeah, Patreon is really the main financial like driver of the band. So that we try to push people there whenever possible. And it's
100%.
we put a lot of stuff on the Patreon, so it's a great deal.
It is worth it. I'm a patron, and it's worth every penny. They're posting on there almost every second day, it seems. Lots of content. 8 music videos for this new album. Is that correct?
Yeah, technically 9 if you want to count. So the last music video we released was 2 tracks, kind of back to back. So, but 8 overall videos. Yeah.
And you guys self-produce all the videos. You're
Yep,
the
we do everything
director, the
ourselves.
videographer, the editor, right?
Lighting, costume design.
Is that something that you just taught yourself how to do, or?
Yeah, when I was a little kid, one of the projects I got into probably around middle school area was I got a membership to the public access TV channel, which allowed me to like rent out cameras. And I was a big Comedy Central nut. So I absolutely loved watching sketch comedy, and a bunch of my friends would put together these little sketch comedy things that, like, looking back on, were like absolutely just horrendous. There were a few funny moments here and there, but like mostly bad. But I learned how to edit and how to film And then basically when Lords of the Trident started up, we didn't have any money. Just like most bands, like we just didn't have any money for anything.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to spend money. We didn't want to save up money to do like one video. So I thought I could probably just teach myself how to do this. And so I did. And then it's just, I really got into it. I really love like filming and editing and adding effects and doing video. And I really enjoy that.
It's just like that saying, you know, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime.
All of the shirts that I make for Lords of the Trident and all of the stuff that I like to buy, I like to get like super high quality fabric, ring spun cotton, Bella canvas, you know. So when I was looking for hoodies, I ended up buying 7 or 8 different types of hoodies, just to like find a fit and a feel and a fabric that I really liked. And basically the cost to make these hoodies is $40, and for each hoodies, like that's our cost.
Yeah.
So we're gonna sell the hoodies at $40. So we're not gonna make any money on it whatsoever, and we're probably gonna lose money on the shipping and everything. But
the quality for the fans.
But it's for the fans. It's for the fans.
What a team play. That is a nice Metal Bud move if I've ever heard one.
Yeah.
Maybe not the smartest business move, but maybe it is. Maybe, you know, sometimes you got to give a little.
The backbone of Lords of the Trident has been built on not smart business moves. Like, you know, we spent time making a 52 card tarot deck that.
Well, you know what? I think so it's a good business principle. Maybe not financially, but an ethos to put the customer first, right? And that is what you're doing is utmost putting the customer first. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't understand. I made a reservation. Do you have my reservation?
Yes, we do. Unfortunately, we ran out of cars.
But the reservation keeps the car here.
Talk about a busy guy. He also just released a digital course called the DIY Band. Actually, 2 courses, if I'm not mistaken.
2 courses.
Tell us a little bit about that and how it came about, what its contents are.
Yeah, so I got to give a big shout out to Jason from Helium Prime, Planeswalker, and probably 17 other bands that you know and love. He and Alex Nasla from Witherfall started working with Glenn Fricker, who is the guy behind Spectre Sound Studios, who you probably people know him online as like the angry engineer guy who yells at you about your bass being terrible and your drummer being a moron. But he also has a bunch of like coursework that he puts out about like, oh, how to record metal guitar, how to program drums, how to this and that. And so they saw all of the content I was doing on YouTube about like DIY stuff for bands, and they said, oh, would you be interested in making a course? So I put together a course, 2 courses on a really deep dive into making your own DIY merchandise, doing your own DIY branding for your band, setting up your merch table in like an effective way, tips and tricks for that. Basically, how to make the most money possible on the road while spending the least amount of money up front is the DIY merch course. And then speaking of the road, the other course is called the DIY tour course, and that'll teach people how to basically create their own tour and their own mini tours in a way that is financially feasible. I will say we started using this new method of touring about 6 or 7 years ago, and since we started doing this way of touring, which I talk about in the course, we have not had a financially unsuccessful tour yet. We've not come back in the red from any tour that we've done since we started doing this. So it's a really great technique for bands who want to get out on the road, but also be able to have a day job, and also, you know, not basically ensure that you're gonna make money on the road. Right.
And man, I wish I had that as a young up and coming band. I'm sure a lot of people use that advice. Is there any sort of gold nuggets that you could share for free here on this interview? Like your top 3 words of advice for new and upcoming bands?
I don't think this one is one of the nuggets that I talk a little bit more about, and it's I go a little bit more in depth in the course, but specifically about finding places to sleep on tour. The rule of thumb for me is that no matter what, we're never sleeping in the van. Never, ever, ever, ever sleeping in the van. And what we do is we try to sleep with bands that we are playing with or fans in the area. Usually it's with bands that we're playing with. We're so dirty. We're sleeping with all the bands that we're going.
You guys
with
get
tour.
around,
but yeah,
lucky bands. You guys want to play a show together or what? No.
Oh yeah, anytime.
You're coming here in Vancouver next year, Hyperspace.
That's right. But the biggest tip that I can offer to bands, and I see almost nobody doing this, right? Almost 0 people have done this, and this is such a no-brainer to me. You can buy a self-inflating double-decker airbed for like $35 that folds up to the size of a backpack.
A double-decker, like a bunk bed?
Not a bunk bed, but it's
I got
it's a double layer, like really high off the ground. Kind of a bed. And so when we go on tour, we bring 6 of these, because there's 6 of us, our 5 plus our merch person. We bring 6 of these, and basically we can sleep in any situation. So if somebody's like, oh, I only got 1 guest bed, or I don't even have a guest bed, or all I've got is a floor, it's like, dude, that's cool. Or in rare cases, a venue would be like, hey, you can stay here tonight, but we don't have any accommodations or anything. Like, that's fine. All you do is you plug in the beds, you hit inflate, and in 2 minutes flat, like, you have a comfortable place to sleep. You're ready to hit the hay. And you don't have to like sleep on a floor. You don't have to sleep in the van. You don't have to spend money on a hotel.
I can just picture this setup. 6 air mattresses getting all blown up. The floor space is just disappearing, and it turns into this almost like a trampoline park.
It's like a bouncy castle of slumber. Especially when you're staying in like efficiencies in the Chicago area. It's like, oh, I've got 1 room. You guys can sleep in it if you want. It's like, all right, well, now we got a bouncy castle. Yeah.
Do you guys don't ever keep one person in the van for security reasons, or?
We have from time to time, but typically no. We use a lot of. This is another thing that we go into in the course. We use a lot of industrial strength locks. We do a lot of parking tricks and things backing up things to ensure that it's rather difficult to break into our van. So we definitely keep security first and foremost in mind, but typically no, we don't have somebody stay in the van, because also, like, I mean, somebody could sleep in the van and maybe somebody would come along to try to steal the trailer, but if it's like 3 guys, like, our drummer's gonna pop out and be like, hey guys, stop stealing our stuff, come on.
Yeah.
So, like,
well, actually, there was a story that came out last week. Arcspire's trailer almost got taken, and
I heard about that.
Especially the drummer was I don't know if he was sleeping in the trailer or in the van, but he woke up as it was happening and scared them off.
Oh. Wow.
He must be very intimidating. He probably blast beated his way across the van. Like, holy cow! It sounds like an army of 10,000.
I'm gonna have to. I'll have to invest in Taekwondo lessons for all the members of my band. So, just in case.
I find what you do very interesting because you work at a meditation research center of some sorts.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing specifics. That's okay. I work at the Center for Healthy Minds at the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus. I am their director of IT, which actually just moved into that role a couple months ago. So that's kind of a new position for me. But I've been working at the center for about 10 years.
Right.
And we are the foremost meditation research center in the world. we basically take a hard-nosed science approach to meditation in general, and to a lot of the claims made by people who practice meditation. The TLDR of everything is that, yes, meditation is extremely beneficial. We've been able to show this scientifically many times over. There's so many amazing benefits to meditation that are absolutely 100% hard-nosed, scientifically backed. It's not, opening your third chakra or, becoming one with the universe. There's actual like hard science that we can show that your brain actually does change in very, dramatic ways from just small amounts of meditation. It doesn't even have to be, any more than 60 seconds to a minute. I mean, really, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, that is pretty wild. So do you practice meditation daily, or?
I'm not, well, I don't do daily all that much. I do try to find, I try to find, a minute to 2 minutes every day, where I am in between tasks, or, I just need a breather, where I do some real quick meditation.
Yeah.
But I do a little bit longer sits, maybe like 2 to 3 times a week. And I mean, by longer, we're talking like 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm not like a 30-minute to an hour meditation guy. They do offer guided meditation, a half-hour guided meditation every week at work. So I usually take that as well.
What a nice benefit to have at work.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent!
What does your meditation practice look like when you sit down for 10 minutes?
Sure. It's typically what it is it's just a lot of awareness meditation, focusing in on the breath. Oftentimes I'll do loving kindness stuff, where I will picture someone who I'm close to and offer them love and kindness. We'll call that the new wave of Nice Metal Buds meditation moment. But I do like to focus in a lot on just general awareness, and just allowing the mind to sort of calm for a bit. One of my favorite practices actually to do, and I know this sort of a practice is different for everybody, is basically envisioning like me sitting by a river, and sort of the thoughts that come in as leaves that are sort of flowing down the river, and I get to like see them appear and then watch them fade away.
Right.
And I know everybody has a little different, some people think about snowflakes, people think about, all sorts of different stuff, but I find that really helps me to just give my brain a break and to be a little bit more clear minded on a lot of stuff. I find that, we all give ourselves like physical breaks where we sit down and lay down and we just like relax, instead of working.
Yep.
But we very rarely give ourselves like a mental break where we sit down and we just like, okay, I'm going to shut my brain off.
Yeah.
Just for 60 seconds, just not think about anything.
Usually those physical breaks, you're scrolling on your phone and your mind is still going and thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
When you say awareness meditation, is that just, as it sounds, just being aware of how you're feeling and the thoughts that come up, and like not analyzing them, but just letting them come and go?
Yeah, I usually start by focusing on something physical, like the breath, or I will I'll do like a body scan meditation, where I'll start, thinking about the top of my head and then moving down, moving through my arms, through my legs, through my body, and just, honing in on very fine points physically. And then I'll just, move into that mindful awareness of, the thoughts that are coming, and just, like the river thing, just trying to let them kind of wash down the river as they come, and keep them out of judgment, which is hard. It's hard to do, but
it is, but it's, I believe the mind is like a muscle. So it becomes hard at first, but then the more you do it, the more habitual and by repetition it becomes easier.
Yeah. The Dalai Lama is like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of meditation. Oh my God, look at his muscles. He's so crazy.
Get to the chopper!
There's nothing like crazy that your center has like discovered, like people moving things with their mind or like bending spoons and stuff like that?
There's a couple of really wild things that we've been able to scientifically prove. And there's two of them that I really love to talk about. One of the studies that they did, they took a bunch of people who'd been meditating for like 30 plus years. So long-term meditators. So we're talking, Buddhist monks. We're talking people who just, had a daily practice for 30 plus years. And they hooked them up into a functional MRI, an fMRI, where you can watch basically the electrical signals in your brain, where they come from, where they end, and what the path is in the brain. And then they hook them up to a shock collar and they shock the shit out of them. Like a
Sign me up.
Like a 7 out of 10. And while they're doing this, they'll have them before and after, they'll have them do like math problems, right? So they're saying, okay, spend a moment and then start these math problems. And then randomly they'll get a really, really painful electric shock. And so we had a group of maybe 100, 200 long-term meditators and a group of 100, 200 people who've never meditated a day in their life, right? And we did all the same thing on them. So for the people who have never, ever meditated, you can look at their brain and there's a starting point. When they get shocked, there's a starting point of the electrical signal of pain, and there's an ending point to the electrical signal of pain, and it goes straight up. It goes straight up in a line, like whoop, right there. For the people who've been meditating for 30 plus years, the starting point is the same. The ending point is the same, but instead of a straight line, it curves. It does like a C to get there. Now, what does that mean? We don't know. Actually, it's really interesting. We don't know what that means. They don't
Like,
rate the pain
like a concave C or a convex?
like a convex. Yeah. They don't rate the pain any lower. They don't feel the pain any less. But they have two completely different neural pathways of what that signal takes. The thing that we did show, however, the thing that is different between the two people is if you shock someone who has never meditated a day in their life, for the next 2 hours, their ability to do math problems is significantly decreased. So basically, they'll be at a baseline of maybe 80% correct math problems, and then you shock them for the next 2 hours, they're at like 20%. Where they get 80% of them wrong. People who have been long-term meditators, they'll be at like 80%. You shock them for about 5 minutes, they're at about 20%, and then they're boom, right back to baseline, almost immediately right back to baseline. So they're back to 80%. So people don't feel pain any differently if they've been meditating for 30 years. You're not suddenly going to levitate on a cloud and be painless. But the reaction to that pain is completely different between the two groups. The other study, and I'll make this quick. They had a bunch of veterans from the Iraq War with really heavy PTSD. And usually when you have really heavy PTSD, they put you on like psychoactive medications where, your relapse rate, your the amount of times that you'll have an episode, right, where you think you're back in the war, it drops from like 70% to like 10%. But you walk around all drugged and you sort of feel kind of drugged out a little bit, right, from this medication. So they took 100 vets, maybe 100, maybe 200, and they put them in a meditation class, and they said, stop taking your medication, only meditation, not medication. They took 100 or 200 vets, and they said, stop taking your medication, but take this like exercise program, right? And then they took 100 vets, and they said, just do your medication normally. So the people who did their medication normally, their chances of having an episode were like 10%, just like how you'd think. The people who did 3 times a week, did like an exercise class for like a half an hour, they didn't do any medication. Their rates dropped from like 70% to 50% in terms of having an episode. So there was some positive effect, but it was, it was not a huge effect comparatively to the actual psychoactive medication that was given. The people who did meditation only 3 days a week, and I think it was like 20-minute classes 3 days a week, and they had like once a month they'd have like a day of meditation where it was like a 4-hour kind of a thing. Their rates of relapse, their rates of having an episode, 10%, exact same as on the medication, and 0 side effects. So yeah, pretty wild stuff.
The power of meditation, man.
Yeah.
That first study makes me think of just how it helps you come back to baseline when something tragic happens.
Absolutely.
Because it's like you can't, even people who are completely at peace with themselves, like something tragic happens, you still get angry sometimes, you still get sad, but it's about how quick can you get back to your emotional anchor or baseline.
Yeah, a lot of Buddhist philosophies talk about like a second arrow is what they say. It's like you get pierced by an arrow. Somebody shoots an arrow at you, and you feel the pain of the arrow, and you feel the hurt of the arrow, and that's the first arrow. And the second arrow is your mind going, "Why did I get shot with this arrow? Why?"
Yeah.
And so it's that training to eliminate that second pain, that second arrow, because you can't do anything about the first one.
Dude, that reminds me of a really good metaphor for forgiveness and holding on to a grudge, as portrayed as getting bitten by a snake. And it's, they say it's not the snake bite that kills you. It's the venom that continues to course through your body long after the bite that will end up in your ruin.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
that is, a metaphor for forgiving somebody else or holding a grudge. It's not doing anything to them. It's not hurting them by you holding on to a grudge or not forgiving them. It's only hurting yourself. The event has already happened, but you holding on to that and being mad at them is only damaging yourself. The mind is a powerful tool or a weapon, depending on how you use it. And, wow. I think we could have a full interview just on those kind of topics, which I might have to have you back or
I'd
something
love to.
like that.
Maybe I could get one of the actual scientists from the lab to come on your stream like with us. We could have like a discussion about some of the crazy science that they're doing.
Wow, that would be incredible.
Yeah, I'm sure they do it.
Yeah, that would be really
got
cool.
we got some metalheads at the lab. We're
Really, I would imagine so. If they are as supportive as they are with you doing the band stuff all the time. So one last question before we sign off, and I let you go because I know you're a busy man. I want to thank you for your time again. Is how would Ty Fang von Rathenstein define success?
Oh God, that's a hard question. Well, first off, I want to say that I would make time for you or any of the Unleashed Archers people anytime, because I love you guys. You're absolutely fabulous, and you've helped us out in so many ways, so many ways that I will I'll bend over backwards. I'll give you the shirt off my back anytime. So, but how would I define success? Man, that's tough. I think I think success is an ever-changing margin and ever-changing mark, because especially when you're making music or art or whatever, there's always something to strive for, to reach for. I think that's part of the process of making art is feeling feelings, and feeling desires and feeling wants. But what I'd like to think of as success is, I heard a story about Dio, that Dio would, when there was these big metal festivals, big meet and greets, legend has it that Dio would basically stay until the entire line was up. He would talk to everyone. He would chat with everyone. He was there, and he fully understood that he was there and in that position because of his fans, because of the people who put him there. not because he was special in any way, but because the love that people gave to him. And so he would wait until the very last person was at the end of the line and had everything signed and all the pictures taken. And so if I can look back on my life and see that any tiny acts of kindness that I've done have created, ripples in a pond that have turned into tsunamis. If I have any little bit of that, I would define my life and maybe Lords of the Trident as a success. I want to always, I always want to make sure that I keep mindful of all of the people who've helped us along the way, you included, especially you guys, but all the fans who have taken the time to listen to our music and to engage in the community and to help us out, financially or otherwise. That's how I would define success, is that is we've created something that extends beyond us and is a positive, gives positive affect to the community and the world at large.
Wow, that was beautiful, dude. That brings a tear to my eye, honestly. And we're gonna leave it at that. So thank you again for coming on, man. It was great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks to everybody who joined us. Make
sure you guys check Ty out. Go follow his page. We get a shout out for Lords of the Trident. Go check him out, and we'll be back.
I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back. I'm back.